Welcome to the Stop Losing Women podcast, where it's all about learning how to keep a girl like me interested for the long haul, if you think you can handle it. And now, here's your host, HarryWilmington.
Hey guys, welcome to Stop Losing Women. So the question today is, if your woman openly either disagrees with you or agrees with somebody else on a point during a discussion in public, is that necessarily a bad thing? So I have a question from a longtime viewer and listener who's apparently liked a lot of my stuff, and he's in a relationship now in part because of the stuff he's listened to on this show. Anyway, so he has a question he wrote me. It's about his girl. Apparently him and his dad were having a conversation about something, and she agreed with one of his points, and now he's wondering if that's like a slight red flag or nothing to worry about at all. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this. As always, guys, if you need help in your dating journey, you can go to stoplosingwomen.com. If you sign up for the newsletter, you can get access to the Get Girls Academy, which houses my absolute best video programs, ebooks, audio courses, and it's all for free. Yes, it's all given away for free now. If you want personal one-on-one coaching, I do charge for that. That is also available at the website. But overall, it's all free stuff. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, helps with the algorithm, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's get into this guy's question. I think it's a good one. So he says, hey, Harry, love watching your content and been a long time since I've needed advice from you. To summarize, is it a red flag if my girl disagrees with me openly? For context, my dad and I were having a debate. Nothing too crazy, just the typical Gen Z versus baby boomer in the workplace convo. At some point, my girl of almost 1 year cuts in to say she agreed with my dad with one of his points. Didn't contribute to the debate before or after, aside from that one comment. Tone was neutral, if that helps. Not to say she isn't allowed to disagree with me at all, but it was the first time she did it openly. I am just hoping the open disagreement is not a sign of something bigger. Otherwise, the relationship is great, at least on my end. Please let me know your thoughts if able, as I always appreciate your insight. Well, first off, thank you very much for writing me. I appreciate that you've listened to my stuff over the years and helped get you a girlfriend, and I'm glad that you continue to be a fan. So this is an interesting conversation because, as you know, if you've seen my show for any amount of time, right, I genuinely believe in having a united front when you are in public. So, for example, you know, my mom always told me that if her and my dad were in public, let's say his mom said something and she disagreed with it, or it wasn't how things ran in the household, right? Given that that's his mom, she would not openly say anything about that. You know, they would get home, at which point then she would say whatever she had to say about whatever, whether she agreed with it, whether she disagreed with it. But in public, it was a united front. So as a generality, I am all for having a united front in public. Now, this situation is interesting. Yes, you can ask your question. I'll answer it after his question. So it's interesting because this is a situation where, you know, up to this point, they've probably had that united front in public. And now there's a situation happening where him and his dad are talking, and out of nowhere, she's just like, whatever, I don't know what the dad said, but whatever the dad said, I guess it was anti whatever the point he was making. And his girl decided to jump in and say, actually, I agree with your dad, as far as we know, right? So I have a couple of feelings about this, but my honest feeling on first listen to that is this is really a nothing burger. But more importantly, understand that for women, there's this journey of they're trying to get the guy to like them first, and then they're trying to keep his interest, right? And so a lot of times, both men and women can fall into this pattern where we just think we need to just with the other person all the time in order to keep them in our good graces, right? But there are times when, like, somebody's going to say something in public, and maybe you have an opinion about it, and your woman feels a different way. Now, would it be nice if she vocalized that behind closed doors all the time? I would say most guys would probably like that. But there are going to be situations where it's perfectly fine to disagree in public. I know, for example, like, let's say you have a favorite sports team and your girl's like anti that team, and somebody in public says, oh, you know, this team is the best. And you're like, no, they're not. Well, your girl's going to now agree with this other person because they have the same team, like, and you don't. And to be mad at her for suddenly going against what you said in public on that would be kind of dumb because you guys have different teams, right? So I think of it like that, where it's like, maybe she's in a position now where it's like she's met your dad and family. She's known them enough to where now she's starting to feel a bit more comfortable being able to openly express her true opinions about things and feeling like she can say, hey, if your dad's making a good point that she agrees with, she can say, hey, I actually agree with that. And she's not going to think it's going to hurt your feelings, right? And to be honest, that's kind of the point you want to get women to. Because here's the thing, it'd be cool if you just had an out and about right yes woman, but the reality is that you want a woman that's going to overall agree with your point on things, but you also want a woman by your side that's going to be willing at times to call you out or to say, hey, I have a better thought about this thing or that thing. And so with regards to, group discussions, let's just be real, right? You get married to this girl at some point, and then you and like 6 other couples are going on a trip together or eating dinner together, and a conversation comes up at the table where in the midst of that conversation, somebody may say something where your girl agrees with their point a little bit more than yours. All right. And this is one of those things where it's like, it's not life-changing. It's not a big deal. It's not like you're saying, I want to move. And then somebody else is saying, well, you shouldn't move. And then your girl's like, yeah, I don't think we should move also. Like that's things in the realm of like, is this a major deal or not? So you yourself said the conversation you're having with your dad, it was just about Gen Z versus boomers. It wasn't like a big thing to where if she agreed with your dad on a point, it's going to be life-changing. Now, again, I get as a guy that it would be ideal for that not to happen, but this isn't one of those things that I feel is such a big deal that it would be like a major red flag. Now, all of that said, I'm also of the belief that, if you feel uncomfortable about a thing, it's better to try to address that early than when it becomes something bigger. So if you really felt like extremely bothered about this, which I don't see there need to be a reason to do that, but if you feel some kind of way, you could just pull her aside and say, hey, babe, so I just want you to know, you don't have to like necessarily reference this particular incident, but you could just have a conversation about how, yeah, I really like having a united front in public, and just, even if we disagree on a point, I'd really prefer to in public have us be united. And then if we have our own disagreements or discussions about a certain thing, we can have that in private, just because, I don't want to trip you up by agreeing with one of your girlfriends about something when you feel strongly against it or whatever like that. You could bring it up that way. But in my personal opinion, I don't think this is the most biggest deal ever to be mad about. I think based on what you're saying about her, it seems like she's overall pretty great. And so just as humans, we're bound to say or do things occasionally that are going to annoy the other person, or they're not going to be aware that the thing you're saying or doing is ruffling our feathers in a certain way. And I've literally had conversations at times with a person that I'm dating or my spouse where I'll be like, hey, I'm just going to say up front, I think that the way I feel about this, or the way I'm internally processing this, is really dumb and stupid. But I just got to tell you, when you did this thing the other day, it bothered me. I don't know why it bothered me. I don't think it's anything you did maliciously or on purpose. I just know that when I heard you I heard you agree with my dad on something, and it wasn't agreeing with me. And I just know I felt some kind of way about that, and I don't know why. I've literally had that conversation, and then the other person just oh, well, was that a bad thing? It's I don't think it was bad. I just, here's the thing. I'm very much akin to recognizing that the reactions I have about things sometimes are not always rational, and they're not things that I think means the other person is a bad person. But I can definitely say, I just know I had some kind of reaction to this, and I don't know what that means. What can we do about that? And then you go from there, and hopefully the person you're with cares about you enough to at least be open to the conversation. Because what you don't want is you say something like, hey, just so you know, this thing was said, and I don't think you meant any malice, but this is how I interpreted it, or this is how I took it, or this is how I realized my body was reacting to it. And then their response is, well, you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't have that reaction. In the moment, when new things happen, we don't know how our bodies are going to react. So if you have a woman that's going to be you shouldn't react that way, or how dare you feel that way, also good to figure that out now, because you don't want to marry somebody like that long term, when every time you bring up something, you're like, well, that shouldn't be a thing. You should just get over it. You don't want that kind of woman either. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Let's see. We got a question in the chat, and the question goes, how does confidence get better? The real answer to that is repetition. People think if I just read enough books and if I study these confidence courses, then I'm going to eventually be confident. But the honest answer is repetition and trial and error. So what I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. Let's do a small example. I love this example, right? So I tell you guys, you should go on a date with a woman and then not text her for 4 days after that, because she needs time to miss you and she needs time to wonder what's going on with you. And it's going to increase her like for you more, to where she's going to want to do more stuff with you on that second date, if you catch my drift, right? So how do you build confidence that that's going to work? You can't just hear it from me and then be like, oh yeah, Harry's right. Because when you do it the first time, you're going to be nerve-wrecked for 4 days straight. But you got to do it. You got to go through the rep of, I'm going to feel nervous for 4 days while I don't contact this woman. And oh my God, what she's going to do. And then you hit her up on day 4 for a date and you hear her say, oh, sure, I'd love to go on another date with you. And at that point, you're like, oh my God. Okay. So if I wait 4 days, she will still like me and want to go out with me. Oh, that's amazing. But then you got to do that again for the next person you date. Or even with this girl, if it works out, you got to take her out. You might get a good makeout session with her or do other things with her. And then you got to wait 4 more days. And you're going to be nervous as heck when that happens. And so every new step you learn, don't think that you can just hear it one time and do it and be confident. That's not how this works. You're going to have to have the understanding that you're going to be nervous as heck anytime you try a new thing that you're not used to trying with regards to trying to attract or talk to women. And just that the more you do it, the better you get at it. And as you start to see positive reactions from the stuff you're doing over and over again, that's when the confidence is going to come in. So again, don't think you can read. Don't think you can just watch a bunch of videos on YouTube and get it down pat. You got to go out there and do the reps. You got to cold approach a bunch of women. You got to go to networking events and talk to people. You got to go out on actual dates. You got to, start knowing how to plan dates, start learning how to converse with women, start learning what moves to make that women will respond positively to. And that takes trial and error. But again, nobody gets out of this unscathed. So you're going to have to do the reps. Sometimes you're not going to get the reaction you want. And you got to be like, okay, that's that person. Next person up, I got to try it again. And you do that enough times over enough months and enough years, and you'll eventually get to confident. Like now I'm hella confident. Like I'm happily married. If God forbid something happened to my wife or she falls down a pit somewhere, I know the steps I would need to take to get somebody else, because I'm just confident in my ability to do that stuff because I did enough reps in my dating life where I knew, okay, if I got broken up with or I broke up with the person, give me a couple of months, I'll find somebody new, But that confidence was more in my late 30s, more so than in my 20s when I was getting no dates and no hookups and had no proof of this stuff. And I was just like, I just got to trust that it's going to work and do it. Like that's a hard thing to try to do, but you got to do it anyway, because that's the only way that you eventually get to confidence. So hopefully that answers your question. Anyway, guys, hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions that you want me to answer on future shows, leave it down in the comments below. You can also write to me personally at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. In the meantime, elevate your dating life. Get educated. Go to StopLosingWomen.com. Sign up for the newsletter. You'll get instant access to the Get Girls Academy, which houses all my best programs on how to do online dating, how to approach women, how to get them on dates, how to plan dates, how to deal with them when they're getting you in an argument, how to actually get into relationships, and everything else you would possibly ever need to know. It is all free, except for one-on-one coaching. If you want one-on-one coaching with your personal situation, sign up for one-on-one coaching at StopLosingWomen.com as well. All right. If you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Stop Losing Women podcast. See you later, big boy.